Once upon a time in the vibrant town of Amakiri, there lived a wealthy and powerful man named Nuka. His wealth stretched beyond imagination. He owned the largest cocoa farms, the busiest markets, and even the only hospital in the region. To the world he appeared untouchable, a man blessed by the gods. But to those who worked closely with him, Nduka was a man of few smiles and many secrets. From a young age, Nduka had been obsessed with power. Born into poverty, he had clawed his way to the top, not through hard work, but through ruthless cunning. People admired his success, but behind their polite greetings was a fear that ran deep. It was said that Nduka had no patience for weakness, and anyone who dared to cross him would mysteriously vanish from the town. One fateful year, the townspeople noticed something odd. Despite his wealth, Nduka had grown restless. He stopped attending community meetings, no longer donated to the town festivals, and rarely stepped out in daylight. Instead, his mansion at the edge of town was constantly visited by strangers, mysterious men who arrived in unmarked vehicles late at night, leaving before the sun rose. The villagers whispered amongst themselves, "What could a man who has everything possibly want?" Nduka's behavior became even more peculiar when he began avoiding his closest friends and family. His wife, Adara, confided in her neighbor, "There is something off about him. He spends hours locked in his study, muttering strange incantations under his breath." The tension in Amakiri reached its peak when a young girl named Olama went missing. Olama was the pride of the town, a vibrant, intelligent maiden known for her melodious voice and her kind heart. The town searched for her everywhere, the forests, the streams, even abandoned huts. But she was nowhere to be found. Her disappearance left a heavy cloud over Amakiri. One night during a candlelit vigil for Olama, an elderly woman named Mama Easy stood up and spoke. "I saw something the night Olama disappeared," she began, her voice shaking. "I saw a black car with tinted windows driving towards Nduka's house. It stopped for a while, and then it sped off, heading towards the morgue." Her words sent a chill through the crowd. The villagers began piecing together rumors, recalling how Nduka always avoided the morgue during funerals. Yet people claimed they had seen him walking in its direction late at night. "What could he possibly be doing there?" someone asked. Determined to uncover the truth, a group of brave villagers decided to follow Nduka one night. Hiding in the shadows, they watched as he exited his mansion and made his way toward the morgue. His bodyguard carried a strange, heavy box wrapped in black cloth. Nduka walked with purpose, his luxurious attire shining in the moonlight, his face set in a wicked scowl. The villagers held their breath as Nduka entered the morgue. They crept closer, peeking through a crack in the window. What they saw made their blood run cold. Inside, the morgue was dimly lit. Dead bodies lay in rows, covered in white sheets, some with bloodstains seeping through the fabric. Nduka was speaking to Chuka, the nervous mortuary attendant. "You know what to do," Nduka said, his voice low and commanding. Chuka hesitated, glancing at the mysterious box. "But sir, this is dangerous. If anyone finds out—" "Silence!" Nduka barked, his eyes blazing with anger. "Do you think I've built this empire by playing it safe? Prepare the body, or I will make sure you're the next one lying on this slab." Chuka reluctantly opened the box, revealing its contents: a collection of strange herbs, a sharp knife, and a small blood-stained idol. The villagers watching from outside gasped silently. The villagers quickly retreated, their hearts pounding. They realized they had uncovered a dangerous secret. Nduka's wealth and power were tied to something unholy, something that involved the dead. The next day, the group gathered to share what they had seen, but they were divided on what to do. "If we confront him, he will destroy us all," one man said. "He has too much power." "But we can't stay silent," Mama Z argued. "What if Olama is one of those bodies? What if others suffer the same fate?" Their argument was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Nduka's bodyguards. "You think you can hide from me?" one of them snarled. "Our master knows everything." His voice was low, filled with menace, and the villagers instinctively took a step back. We were just—" One of the men stammered, but the bodyguard silenced him with a raised hand. "No need for lies," the bodyguard said with a cruel smile. "Nduka knows everything you've seen, and if you think you can expose him without consequences, you're gravely mistaken." The other bodyguard, taller and more imposing, cracked his knuckles menacingly. The only thing left for you is to disappear like all the others who have tried. Fear gripped the villagers, but Mama Ease stepped forward, her frail figure towering with resolve. You may think you hold all the power, but you are nothing compared to the spirits we call upon tonight. She raised her hand, holding an ancient charm that had been passed down for generations. The charm glowed faintly under the moonlight. The bodyguards faltered for a moment, eyes narrowing at the charm. The tension in the air was palpable as the villagers stood their ground, unwilling to let fear dictate their actions any longer. "Leave us be," Mames demanded. "The gods will judge you if you dare harm us." A cold laugh echoed from the taller bodyguard as he stepped closer to her. "You still think your gods can protect you?" He sneered, his voice full of derision. "Let's see how well they protect you when Nduka's wrath is upon you." But before the bodyguard could take another step, a loud crash interrupted the standoff. The villagers turned in shock, realizing that someone had used the distraction to knock over a wooden barrel nearby, creating a perfect opening for escape. They took it without hesitation, scattering in different directions, hearts racing, but driven by the urgency to expose Nduka's secret. The villagers, though outnumbered and outclassed by the bodyguards, had one advantage. They knew the terrain. They darted into the shadows, weaving through alleys and narrow paths. The bodyguards cursed and shouted orders, but they couldn't catch them. The villagers ran as fast as they could, determined to bring the truth to light. Eventually, they regrouped in the town's hidden temple, where the ancestors' spirits were said to reside. Breathless and exhausted, Mama Easy clutched her charm tightly, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and anticipation. "We must confront Nduka before it's too late," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. A few of the braver villagers nodded, and together they decided to take the final step. They would expose Nduka and his dark secrets. But as they gathered their courage, they knew it would not be an easy fight. Later that night, as the moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the town, Nduka stood in his study, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. The walls of his mansion seemed to close in on him as the shadows danced menacingly around him. He knew the villagers were coming. He could feel their presence, their defiance. "Foolish," Nduka muttered under his breath. "They think they can take me down." He glanced at the dark altar in the corner of the room. The strange idol, still stained with blood from his dark rituals, stood as a symbol of his power. But now doubt began to creep in. The villagers were desperate, and their spirits, driven by ancient power, were not to be underestimated. Suddenly, a loud banging at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was the villagers. Mama Ease, her voice resolute, shouted from outside, "Nduka, come out and face the truth." The door swung open with a violent crash as the villagers burst into the study, their faces determined and unyielding. Nduka's eyes narrowed, his lip curling into a sinister smile. "So you've come to play hero," he sneered. "We've come to stop you," Mama Ez replied. "You have cursed this land with your dark powers, but no one is above the gods." Nduka laughed, but it was hollow, filled with fear. He knew he had pushed the balance too far this time. "You think you can defeat me with your old charms? I am beyond the reach of gods." But before he could finish his sentence, the villagers held up their sacred symbols, the power of their ancestors pouring into the room. The walls shook, the ground trembled, and the shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around Nduka in a dark whirlpool. For the first time, Nduka felt real fear, something he hadn't felt since his childhood, when he was poor and powerless. The dark forces he had relied on were turning against him, and he realized too late that he could not control the ancient powers he had sought to master. With a final, desperate scream, Nduka collapsed to his knees, his powers unraveling. The spirits of the ancestors took their vengeance, pulling him into the abyss he had created. The villagers, though shaken, were free from the grip of his dark influence. They celebrated the return of their peace, honoring the spirits that had protected them. But Mama Ease's words remained etched in their hearts. Never forget that power gained through darkness always comes with a price. And though they had rid themselves of Nduka's evil, the lessons learned that night stayed with them forever. In the end, it was not the riches or the power that gave them strength, but the unity of the villagers and the protection of the spirits that guided them to victory. The moral lesson of this story is that power gained through darkness and deceit always comes at a heavy price. and true strength lies in unity and integrity.